As you take your first breath this morning, a startling realization settles in. Nothing will ever be the same. The air feels different, heavier, as if the molecules themselves are charged with a secret you have yet to uncover. You lie there, suspended between the remnants of a dream and the sharp edges of waking life, and for a fleeting moment you sense the world tilting on its axis. The familiar patterns, the comforting routines, the predictable rhythms have dissolved into something unrecognizable. You are no longer certain where the boundaries of your reality end and the unknown begins. Imagine waking up one day and realizing that the order you've clung to, the structure you've built your life around, is nothing more than a fragile illusion. Picture yourself opening your eyes to a world where everything has changed overnight, not in the way of apocalyptic disaster, but in the subtle, insidious way that a single thread once pulled unravels the entire tapestry. You reach for your phone, your anchor to the digital world, but the notifications that once dictated your morning now seem hollow, their urgency exposed as a trick of the mind. The news, the weather, the endless scroll of curated lives, suddenly, it all feels like static, a desperate attempt to impose meaning on chaos. You find yourself standing at the edge of a new reality, the truth dawning on you all at once. The universe is not a clockwork machine, ticking predictably towards some grand design. It is a storm, wild and indifferent, swirling with forces beyond comprehension. The rules you thought governed your existence, cause and effect, effort and reward, good and evil begin to blur, their edges dissolving into ambiguity. You are left with a single unsettling question. What if chaos is not the enemy, but the very fabric of existence? Suddenly, you're faced with a moment that makes you question everything you thought you knew. The job you worked so hard to secure, the relationships you nurtured, the beliefs you defended. What if they are all built on shifting sand? What if the certainty you crave is nothing more than a story you tell yourself to ward off the terror of the unknown? You remember the times you tried to control the uncontrollable, to force order onto the messiness of life, only to find yourself exhausted, defeated, and more lost than before. Why does the universe seem to delight in upending your plans, in scattering your carefully arranged pieces like a mischievous child overturning a board game? As you sit up, the room around you feels both familiar and alien. The sunlight streaming through the window is the same as yesterday, yet it illuminates the dust motes in a way you've never noticed before. Each one a tiny, chaotic dance, unpredictable and beautiful. You realize that you have spent your life trying to sweep away the dust, to sanitize your world, to make it safe and knowable. But what if the dust is not the problem? What if the problem is your refusal to see the beauty in its randomness? A paradox begins to gnaw at the edges of your mind. The more you strive for control, the more chaotic life becomes. The tighter you grip, the more things slip through your fingers. You recall the moments when you let go, when you surrendered to the flow of events, when you allowed yourself to be carried by the current rather than fighting against it. In those rare instances, you felt a strange sense of freedom, a lightness that defied explanation. Why then do you always return to the illusion of control, to the comfort of routines and plans? You think of the stories you've been told since childhood, the myths of heroes conquering monsters, of order triumphing over chaos, of light banishing darkness. These stories promised safety, certainty, a world that made sense. But as you look back, you see the cracks in the narrative. The monsters were never truly vanquished. They simply changed shape. The darkness was never fully banished. It lingered at the edges, waiting for the light to falter. What if the true story is not one of conquest, but of coexistence? What if chaos is not something to be defeated, but something to be embraced? Your heart beats faster as you consider the implications. If chaos is the rule, not the exception, what does that mean for your life, for your dreams, your fears, your sense of self? Are you merely a leaf tossed by the wind, or is there a deeper wisdom in learning to ride the storm? You remember the times you stood at the crossroads, paralyzed by indecision, terrified of making the wrong choice. What if there is no right choice, only the courage to choose and the humility to accept the consequences? The room seems to pulse with possibility, each object vibrating with hidden potential. The coffee mug on your nightstand, chipped and stained, is a testament to imperfection, a silent witness to countless mornings, each one different, each one shaped by forces beyond your control. You realize that you have been taught to fear imperfection, to see it as a flaw to be corrected. But what if imperfection is the source of all beauty, all creativity, all growth? What if the cracks are where the light gets in? You begin to see your life as a series of moments, each one shaped by chaos as much as by order. The unexpected phone call that changed everything. The chance encounter that led to a lifelong friendship. The failure that opened the door to a new beginning. You realize that the most meaningful experiences are often the ones you could never have planned, the ones that emerged from the fertile ground of uncertainty. Why then do you resist the very force that gives life its richness? A sense of unease settles over you, mingled with a strange exhilaration. You are standing at the threshold of a new understanding, one that demands you let go of old certainties and embrace the unknown. But how do you do that? How do you surrender to chaos without losing yourself? How do you find meaning in a world that refuses to be tamed? You look out the window and see the world waking up, cars streaming down the street, people hurrying to their destinations, each one clinging to their own version of order. You wonder how many of them feel the same tension, the same longing for certainty in a world that offers none. How many are secretly terrified of the chaos lurking beneath the surface, the chaos that threatens to upend their carefully constructed lives? You recall the words of ancient philosophers, the ones who warned against the hubris of believing we can control fate. You think of the Stoics, who counseled acceptance of what cannot be changed, and the mystics, who saw divinity in the unpredictable. You wonder if they were onto something, if the path to wisdom lies not in mastery, but in surrender. But surrender is not the same as defeat. It is not a passive resignation, but an active engagement with the mystery of existence. It is the courage to face the void, to dance on the edge of uncertainty, to find beauty in the chaos. Are you willing to take that leap? Are you willing to let go of the stories that have kept you safe and step into the unknown? The questions swirl in your mind, each one more unsettling than the last. What if the search for order is itself a form of chaos? What if the desire for certainty is the very thing that keeps you trapped? What if the only way to find peace is to stop searching for it, to allow yourself to be swept up in the wild, unpredictable flow of life? You feel the weight of these questions pressing down on you, demanding answers that refuse to come. You sense that you are on the verge of a revelation, a breakthrough that will change everything. But for now, you are suspended in the tension, caught between the comfort of the known and the terror of the unknown. As you rise from your bed, you carry this tension with you, a silent companion, a reminder that the world is not as simple as you once believed. You move through your morning routine with new eyes, noticing the small disruptions, the tiny moments of chaos that punctuate the day. The spilled coffee, the missed bus, the unexpected smile from a stranger. Each one is a reminder that life is not a script to be followed, but a dance to be improvised. You begin to wonder, what would happen if you stopped resisting? What would happen if you allowed yourself to be shaped by chaos rather than trying to shape it? Would you lose yourself, or would you finally become who you were meant to be? The paradox deepens. To find yourself, you must lose yourself. To gain control, you must let go. To create order, you must first embrace chaos. These are not easy truths, but they are the only truths worth pursuing. As you step out into the world, the air feels charged with possibility. You are no longer afraid of the chaos. You are curious. You are no longer clinging to certainty. You are open. You are no longer seeking to impose your will on the world. You are ready to listen, to learn, to be transformed. But the journey has only just begun. The questions you carry are heavy, and the answers are elusive. You sense that there is a deeper force at work, a hidden problem that lies beneath the surface of your struggle with chaos. What is it that makes you fear the unknown? What is it that drives your need for control? What ancient forces, psychological and philosophical, have shaped your relationship with chaos? The answers lie waiting, just beyond the horizon of your awareness. To find them, you must be willing to venture deeper, to confront the hidden roots of your fear, to unravel the tangled web of beliefs and assumptions that bind you. Only then can you hope to understand the true nature of chaos and the art of embracing it. And so, with your heart pounding and your mind racing, You take the first step into the unknown, ready to face the hidden problem that has shaped your life in ways you have never imagined. The journey into chaos has begun, and there is no turning back. You step into the day, carrying the weight of those unanswered questions, feeling the invisible tension between the world's apparent order and the chaos that pulses beneath its surface. The city hums around you, horns blare, footsteps echo, conversations drift by in fragments. Yet beneath the choreography of daily life, you sense a deeper current, a hidden force shaping every thought, every action, every hope and fear. You begin to wonder, why is chaos so terrifying? Why does the unknown provoke such a visceral, almost primal resistance within you? You search for the roots of this fear, tracing it back through the corridors of memory. You recall childhood moments, your first day at school, the trembling uncertainty of a new environment, the desperate search for something familiar to cling to. You remember the stories adults told you, stories designed to comfort, to explain, to make sense of a world that often made no sense at all. Everything happens for a reason, they said. There's a plan. But even then, you sensed the cracks in their assurances, the way their voices faltered when confronted with tragedy or loss. You learned early that chaos was something to be avoided, contained, denied. But why? What is it about chaos that strikes so deeply at the core of your being? You begin to see that the problem is not merely personal, but universal, a hidden architecture of the mind, a psychological and philosophical inheritance passed down through generations. You are not alone in your struggle. You are part of a vast invisible web, woven from the threads of human history. You recall the words of Carl Jung, who spoke of the shadow, the parts of ourselves we refuse to acknowledge, the chaos we exile to the depths of the unconscious. Jung understood that the human psyche is not a fortress of order, but a battleground between opposing forces. The more you repress the shadow, the more powerfully it asserts itself, erupting in dreams, in anxieties, in moments of inexplicable rage or despair. You realize that your fear of chaos is in part a fear of yourself, of the wild, untamed energies that lurk beneath the surface of your carefully constructed identity. You think of Friedrich Nietzsche, who warned against the dangers of clinging to false certainties. He who fights with monsters should look to it that he himself does not become a monster, Nietzsche wrote. And if you gaze long into an abyss, the abyss also gazes into you. You feel the truth of these words in your bones. The more you struggle to impose order, the more you risk becoming rigid, brittle, unable to adapt. The abyss is not merely out there, in the world, it is within you, a mirror reflecting your deepest fears and desires. Arthur Schopenhauer's voice echoes in your mind, whispering of the will to life, the blind, chaotic force that drives all existence. Schopenhauer saw the world as a place of suffering, a ceaseless striving that can never be fully satisfied. You sense the resonance of his philosophy in your own restless longing, your endless pursuit of meaning in a world that offers no guarantees. Is it possible that your fear of chaos is at its core a fear of suffering? A fear that without order you will be swallowed by pain and emptiness? You remember Aldous Huxley, who saw society as a machine for manufacturing comfort and distraction, a way of shielding ourselves from the raw, unfiltered reality of existence. Huxley warned that in our quest for security, we risk losing touch with the very things that make life worth living. Wonder, curiosity, the capacity for awe. You begin to see how the structures of modern life, technology, bureaucracy, routine, are designed to insulate you from chaos, to create the illusion of control. But beneath the surface, the chaos remains, waiting for a crack in the armor. Jean-Paul Sartre's existentialism presses in, challenging you to confront the radical freedom at the heart of human existence. Sartre insisted that life has no inherent meaning, that you are condemned to be free, to create your own purpose in a universe that is indifferent to your desires. This freedom is exhilarating, but also terrifying. It means that you cannot hide behind fate or destiny. You must take responsibility for your choices, even when the path ahead is shrouded in uncertainty. Is it any wonder that you cling to order, to the comfort of rules and roles, when the alternative is the dizzying vertigo of absolute freedom? Viktor Frankl, survivor of the Holocaust, offers a different perspective, a glimmer of hope in the darkness. Frankl believed that meaning could be found even in the midst of chaos, that suffering itself could be transformed into a source of strength. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves, he wrote. You feel the power of this insight, the possibility that chaos is not merely a threat, but an invitation, a call to growth, to transformation, to the discovery of a deeper purpose. You begin to see how these philosophical currents have shaped your own psyche, how they have woven themselves into the fabric of your thoughts and emotions. The fear of chaos is not just a personal quirk, it is a legacy, a collective inheritance. It is the product of millennia of human struggle, of civilizations rising and falling, of stories told around campfires to ward off the darkness. You are the heir to a long tradition of seeking order in a world that resists all attempts at mastery. But there is another layer, a psychological dimension that runs even deeper. You recall the experiments of psychologists like John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth, who studied the bonds between infants and caregivers. Their research revealed a fundamental truth. From the moment you are born, you are wired to seek safety, to attach yourself to sources of comfort and stability. When those bonds are threatened, when the world becomes unpredictable, your nervous system responds with fear, with anxiety, with a desperate search for reassurance. You realize that your relationship with chaos is shaped by these early experiences, by the ways you learn to cope with uncertainty. Some people become hyper-vigilant, always scanning for danger, always trying to anticipate the next crisis. Others retreat into denial, numbing themselves with distractions, refusing to acknowledge the chaos that surrounds them. Still others oscillate between these extremes, caught in a cycle of hope and despair. You see these patterns playing out in your own life, in the lives of those around you. The colleague who micromanages every detail, terrified of making a mistake. The friend who avoids difficult conversations, afraid of stirring up conflict. The parent who clings to tradition, unable to accept change. Each one is responding to chaos in their own way, seeking order in a world that refuses to be tamed. But beneath these individual strategies lies a deeper, more insidious problem. The belief that chaos is the enemy, that it must be eradicated at all costs. This belief is reinforced by culture, by education, by the very language you use to describe the world. You are taught to value control, to prize certainty, to see unpredictability as a threat. You are rewarded for following the rules, for coloring inside the lines, for keeping your emotions in check. The message is clear: chaos is dangerous, order is safe. Yet, as you reflect on your own experiences, you begin to question this narrative. You remember moments when chaos led to unexpected joy, a spontaneous adventure, a creative breakthrough, a new friendship forged in the midst of crisis. You recall times when order became suffocating, when the pursuit of perfection left you feeling empty and alone. You start to suspect that the real problem is not chaos itself, but your relationship to it, the way you have been conditioned to fear it, to fight it, to deny its place in your life. You sense that this conditioning runs deeper than you realized, that it is woven into the very structure of your mind. You think of the brain's default mode network, the neural circuitry that generates your sense of self, your narrative identity. This network is constantly seeking patterns, imposing meaning, constructing stories to make sense of the chaos. It is a powerful tool, but it can also become a prison, trapping you in rigid ways of thinking, blinding you to the possibilities that lie beyond the boundaries of your current understanding. You begin to see how this hidden force shapes not only your thoughts, but your emotions, your relationships, your very sense of who you are. It is the source of your anxiety, your perfectionism, your need for approval. It is the reason you hesitate to take risks, to step outside your comfort zone, to embrace the unknown. It is the voice that whispers, "Stay safe. Don't rock the boat. Don't let go." But you also sense that this voice is not the whole truth. There is another voice, quieter but more insistent, urging you to break free, to explore, to create. This is the voice of curiosity, of wonder, of the part of you that longs to dance with chaos rather than hide from it. You realize that the real challenge is not to eliminate chaos, but to learn how to relate to it in a new way, to see it not as a threat, but as a source of possibility. The tension between these two voices, the voice of fear and the voice of curiosity, creates a kind of existential friction, a psychological struggle that plays out in every moment of your life. It is the hidden problem at the heart of the human condition, the root of your suffering and your potential for growth. You sense that if you can learn to navigate this tension, to hold both voices in balance, you will discover a new kind of freedom, a freedom that comes not from escaping chaos, but from embracing it. But how? How do you break free from the conditioning of a lifetime, from the deep-seated beliefs and habits that keep you trapped? How do you learn to trust chaos, to find meaning in uncertainty, to let go of the need for control? The answers are not easy, and the path ahead is fraught with danger and uncertainty. But you sense that the journey is worth it, that on the other side of fear lies a new way of being, a way of living that is richer, deeper, more authentic. As you move through your day, you carry these questions with you, feeling the weight of the hidden problem pressing in from all sides. You sense that the consequences of ignoring this problem are profound, that the cost of denying chaos is greater than you ever imagined. You are on the brink of a new understanding, a breakthrough that will change everything. The unseen consequences of your relationship with chaos are waiting to be revealed, lurking just beneath the surface of your awareness. To see them clearly, you must be willing to look deeper, to confront the ways in which chaos shapes your life in ways you have never acknowledged. Only then can you hope to break free from the invisible chains that bind you, and to discover the art of embracing chaos. You move through the world, unaware of the silent machinery shaping your every thought, every choice, every heartbeat. The city's pulse is steady, but beneath its surface, chaos is at work. Subtle, relentless, invisible. You have been taught to fear it, to build walls against it, to pretend it does not exist. Yet as you begin to look more closely, you see the cracks in the foundation, the places where chaos seeps in, reshaping everything you thought was solid. You notice it first in the small things, the way your mind drifts during a meeting, replaying old arguments or rehearsing future conversations. The way you reach for your phone in moments of discomfort, seeking distraction from the restless energy that stirs within you. The way you cling to routines, even when they no longer serve you, because the alternative, stepping into the unknown, feels unbearable. These are not random quirks, they are symptoms of a deeper malaise, the unseen consequences of your war against chaos. You begin to see how this war shapes your relationships. You notice the subtle ways you try to control those you love, offering advice when none is asked for, growing anxious when plans change, resenting the unpredictability of another person's emotions. You realize that your need for order is not just about your own comfort, it is a demand you place on the world, a silent contract that others must sign. When they refuse, when they bring their own chaos into your life, you feel betrayed, threatened, exposed. You see it in the workplace too. The endless meetings, the rigid hierarchies, the obsession with metrics and outcomes. These are not just tools for productivity. They are rituals designed to ward off uncertainty, to create the illusion of control in a world that is fundamentally unpredictable. You watch as colleagues burn out, crushed by the weight of impossible expectations, their creativity stifled by the relentless demand for order. You wonder how much potential is lost, how many ideas are never born, because the system cannot tolerate the messiness of chaos. But the consequences run deeper still. You begin to notice the ways in which your own mind conspires against you, using cognitive biases to shield you from the discomfort of uncertainty. Confirmation bias leads you to seek out information that supports your existing beliefs, filtering out anything that challenges your sense of order. The illusion of control convinces you that your actions have more influence over outcomes than they really do, allowing you to ignore the role of chance and randomness in your life. The sunk cost fallacy keeps you trapped in dead-end jobs, toxic relationships, and failed projects, because admitting defeat would mean acknowledging the chaos you have tried so hard to deny. You realize that these biases are not flaws, but adaptations, evolutionary strategies designed to help you survive in a world that is far more chaotic than you care to admit. Your ancestors lived in constant uncertainty, never knowing where their next meal would come from or when danger might strike. The mind evolved to seek patterns, to impose meaning, to create stories that made the world feel safer, more predictable. But in the modern world, these adaptations have become traps, keeping you locked in cycles of anxiety and avoidance. You see the consequences in society at large: the rise of conspiracy theories, the polarization of politics, the spread of misinformation. All are symptoms of a collective inability to tolerate uncertainty. When the world becomes too complex, too chaotic, people retreat into simple narratives, us versus them thinking, black and white morality. They seek scapegoats, invent enemies, build walls, anything to restore a sense of order, however illusory. You realize that the greatest dangers are not the forces of chaos themselves, but the desperate attempts to suppress them. You think of the neurological roots of this struggle. The amygdala, the brain's fear center, is constantly scanning for threats, ready to trigger the fight-or-flight response at the slightest hint of danger. The prefrontal cortex, seat of reason and planning, tries to impose order, to predict and control. But the two are often at odds, locked in a tug-of-war that leaves you exhausted, anxious, unable to rest. You see how chronic stress, the constant background hum of uncertainty, wears down the body, weakens the immune system, shortens the lifespan. The war against chaos is not just psychological, it is biological, etched into your very cells. You begin to understand why so many people feel lost, disconnected, adrift. The more you try to escape chaos, the more it asserts itself, finding new ways to break through your defenses. You see it in the epidemic of anxiety and depression, in the rise of addiction and loneliness, in the sense of meaninglessness that haunts so many lives. These are not individual failures, but collective symptoms of a society that has forgotten how to live with uncertainty. You notice how culture reinforces this forgetting. From an early age, you are taught to value certainty, to seek answers, to avoid mistakes. The education system rewards conformity, punishes risk-taking, and measures success by standardized tests. The media bombards you with stories of disaster and catastrophe, feeding your fear of the unknown. Social media amplifies the illusion of control, allowing you to curate your life, to present a version of yourself that is always in command. But beneath the surface, chaos simmers, waiting for the moment when the mask slips. You see how this conditioning shapes your sense of identity. You define yourself by your roles, your achievements, your possessions, by the things you can control. But when these are threatened, when chaos intrudes, you feel as if you are losing yourself. You cling to old stories, even when they no longer fit, because the alternative is to face the void, to admit that you are not who you thought you were. You realize that your fear of chaos is at its core a fear of dissolution, a fear that without order, you will cease to exist. But the consequences are not only negative. You begin to see the ways in which chaos is also a source of creativity, of growth, of transformation. You remember moments when you were forced to let go, when a relationship ended, when a job was lost, when a dream collapsed. In the aftermath, there was pain, confusion, grief, but there was also a strange sense of liberation, a feeling that anything was possible. You realize that chaos is not just destruction, it is also creation, the fertile ground from which new possibilities emerge. You think of the artists, the innovators, the visionaries who have learned to dance with chaos, to harness its energy rather than resist it. You recall the words of Nietzsche, "One must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star." You see how the greatest works of art, the most profound discoveries, are born not from order, but from the willingness to venture into the unknown, to risk failure, to embrace uncertainty. You begin to suspect that the real danger is not chaos itself, but your refusal to engage with it. The more you try to suppress it, the more it erupts in destructive ways: addiction, violence, fanaticism. But when you learn to work with chaos, to accept its presence, to find meaning in its unpredictability, you unlock a new kind of power, a power that is not about control, but about adaptability, resilience, and creativity. You see this truth reflected in nature. The forest is not a static, orderly system, but a dynamic web of relationships constantly shifting, adapting, evolving. The river does not flow in a straight line, but meanders, carves new paths, responds to obstacles. Life itself is a process of constant change, of birth and death, of order emerging from chaos and returning to it again. You realize that your attempts to impose order are not only futile, but unnatural, a denial of the very principles that sustain life. You feel the urgency of this realization. The world is changing faster than ever before. Technological revolutions, environmental crises, social upheavals, the old certainties are crumbling. The future is more unpredictable than ever. You sense that the only way to survive, to thrive, is to develop a new relationship with chaos, to learn to navigate uncertainty, to find meaning in the midst of change. But how? How do you break free from the unseen consequences of your war against chaos? How do you unlearn the habits of a lifetime, the conditioning of a culture that fears the unknown? The answers are not simple, and the path is not easy. It requires courage, humility, and a willingness to let go of the illusion of control. You begin to see that the first step is awareness, to recognize the ways in which chaos shapes your life, to acknowledge the hidden costs of your resistance. You must be willing to look honestly at your fears, your biases, your need for certainty. You must be willing to question the stories you have been told, to challenge the assumptions that keep you trapped. You sense that this is not a solitary journey, but a collective one. The problems you face are not yours alone. They are shared by all who live in this uncertain world. You realize that true freedom comes not from escaping chaos, but from learning to live with it, to find connection and meaning in the midst of uncertainty. The breakthrough is close, just beyond the horizon of your awareness. You feel the tension building, the old patterns beginning to crack. You sense that a new way of being is possible, a way that does not deny chaos but embraces it, that finds beauty in imperfection, that discovers strength in vulnerability. But before you can reach this breakthrough, you must confront the final barrier, the rebellion against everything you have been taught, the radical shift in perspective that will allow you to break free from the prison of certainty. The time has come to challenge the old order, to reclaim your power, to discover the art of living with chaos. Are you ready to take the leap? Are you willing to risk everything for the chance to be truly alive? The rebellion awaits, and with it, the possibility of a new kind of freedom. You stand at the threshold, the old world behind you, the unknown stretching out before you like a storm-lit sea. The air is electric with possibility and fear. You feel the weight of your conditioning, the voices of parents, teachers, bosses, the silent pressure of culture urging you to turn back, to seek safety in the familiar. But something in you has shifted. The cracks in your certainty have become windows, and through them you glimpse a new way of being. The rebellion begins not with a shout, but with a whisper. What if you stopped running from chaos? What if you turned to face it, arms open, heart exposed? You take a breath, and in that breath, you sense the first stirrings of freedom. The rebellion is not a war against the world, but a revolution within yourself, a refusal to be ruled by fear, a willingness to question everything you have been taught. You remember the words of Jean-Paul Sartre, "Freedom is what you do with what's been done to you." The world may be chaotic, but you are not powerless. You can choose how to respond. You can choose to break the cycle. The first act of rebellion is to let go of the illusion of control. This is not surrender in the sense of defeat, but surrender as an act of courage, a conscious decision to stop fighting the current and learn to swim with it. You recall the wisdom of the Stoics, who taught that you cannot control what happens to you, only how you respond. You begin to see that your power lies not in mastery over the world, but in mastery over yourself, in the ability to remain calm in the midst of the storm, to find stillness in chaos. You remember Viktor Frankl, who found meaning in the most unimaginable suffering. He did not deny the horror of his circumstances, but he refused to let them define him. He discovered that even in the darkest chaos, there is a space of freedom, a place where you can choose your attitude, your response, your purpose. You realize that this is the heart of the rebellion, the refusal to be a victim of circumstance, the insistence on finding meaning even when none is given. You begin to experiment with letting go. The next time plans fall apart, you resist the urge to panic or blame. Instead, you pause, breathe, and ask, what is possible now? What new path is opening before me? You notice that when you stop clinging to your expectations, you become more flexible, more creative, more alive. You start to see opportunities where before you saw only obstacles. The world becomes less threatening, more mysterious, more full of potential. You look to history for examples of those who have embraced chaos and found greatness. You think of Leonardo da Vinci, whose genius was born not from rigid discipline, but from a restless curiosity, a willingness to follow his obsessions wherever they led. You think of Marie Curie, who defied the conventions of her time, risking everything to pursue her passion for science. You think of the jazz musicians who improvise in the moment, creating beauty from uncertainty, trusting their instincts, surrendering to the flow. You realize that the greatest breakthroughs, scientific, artistic, spiritual, have always come from those willing to step into the unknown, to risk failure, to embrace the messiness of creation. You see that chaos is not the enemy of order, but its partner, that true innovation arises from the tension between structure and spontaneity, discipline and play. You begin to understand that the art of living is the art of balancing these forces, of learning when to hold on and when to let go. You start to practice this art in your own life. You set intentions, but hold them lightly. You make plans, but remain open to change. You cultivate routines, but allow for improvisation. You learn to listen to your intuition, to trust the wisdom of your body, to follow the thread of curiosity even when it leads you off the map. You discover that the more you embrace uncertainty, the more resilient you become. The less you fear failure, the more willing you are to take risks, to learn, to grow. You notice the effects in your relationships. When you stop trying to control others, you create space for genuine connection. You become more present, more attentive, more compassionate. You learn to listen without judgment, to hold space for the chaos of another's experience. You realize that love is not about possession or certainty, but about vulnerability, trust, and the willingness to be changed by another. You see that the deepest intimacy arises not from sameness, but from the dance of difference, the interplay of order and chaos. You begin to question the stories you have been told about success, happiness, and meaning. You see that the pursuit of perfection is a trap, that the quest for certainty is a dead end. You realize that true fulfillment comes not from achieving some final state of order, but from engaging fully with the process of becoming, from embracing the uncertainty, the messiness, the unpredictability of life. You start to measure your days not by what you have accomplished, but by how deeply you have lived, how fully you have shown up, how courageously you have loved. You find inspiration in the natural world. You watch the way a tree bends in the wind, yielding without breaking. You marvel at the resilience of wild flowers, blooming in the cracks of concrete. You see that life is not a battle against chaos, but a dance with it, a constant process of adaptation, transformation, renewal. You begin to trust that you too are part of this dance, that you have within you the capacity to adapt, to grow, to thrive in the face of uncertainty. You start to cultivate practices that help you stay grounded in the midst of chaos. You meditate, learning to observe your thoughts and emotions without getting swept away. You journal, giving voice to the chaos within, making space for the parts of yourself you have tried to hide. You move your body, feeling the energy of life flowing through you, reminding yourself that you are alive, that you are here, that you are enough. You seek out communities of fellow rebels, people who are willing to question the status quo, to embrace uncertainty, to support one another in the journey of becoming. You find solace in their stories, their struggles, their triumphs. You realize that you are not alone, that the rebellion is bigger than you, that it is a movement, a revolution, a new way of being in the world. You begin to see the world with new eyes. Where once you saw only danger, you now see possibility. Where once you felt trapped, you now feel free. Where once you clung to certainty, you now welcome the unknown. You realize that the art of embracing chaos is not about giving up, but about waking up, about seeing the world as it truly is, and finding your place within it. You feel a new sense of power rising within you. Not the brittle power of control, but the supple power of adaptability, resilience, creativity. You realize that you are capable of facing whatever comes, that you have within you the resources to navigate uncertainty, to find meaning in the midst of chaos. You begin to trust yourself, to trust the process, to trust life itself. You sense that this is only the beginning. The rebellion is not a one-time event, but a lifelong practice, a daily commitment to show up, to stay open, to keep learning, to keep growing. You know that there will be setbacks, failures, moments of doubt, but you also know that you are no longer afraid, that you are no longer a prisoner of your conditioning, that you are free to create your own path. You look back at the journey you have taken, the fear, the resistance, the suffering, the breakthrough. You see how each step has brought you closer to yourself, to the truth of who you are. You realize that the art of embracing chaos is the art of becoming fully alive, of saying yes to the mystery, the beauty, the terror, the wonder of existence. You stand at the edge of the unknown, ready to leap. The old world is gone. The new world is waiting to be born. You are the artist, the creator, the rebel. You are the storm and the stillness, the question and the answer, the chaos and the order. You are free. But even now, as you taste this new freedom, you sense that there is a deeper truth waiting to be discovered, a final, most powerful realization that will change everything. The journey is not over. The ultimate insight is just beyond your reach, shimmering on the horizon. You feel its pull, its promise, its challenge. Are you ready to take the final step? Are you willing to see the world and yourself with new eyes? The ultimate truth awaits, and with it, the possibility of a life beyond fear, beyond control, beyond the old stories. The time has come to discover what lies on the other side of chaos. You stand at the precipice, the world behind you dissolving into memory, the horizon before you shimmering with possibility. The rebellion has stripped you bare, no longer armored by certainty, no longer shielded by the illusion of control. You feel the rawness of existence, the pulse of life unmediated by old stories. The air is thick with anticipation, as if the universe itself is holding its breath, waiting for you to take the final step. A question echoes in the silence. What is left when you have surrendered every defense, when you have let go of every illusion, when you have embraced chaos not as an enemy, but as a companion? What remains when you have risked everything for the chance to be fully alive? You close your eyes and listen. At first, there is only the sound of your own heartbeat, steady and insistent. But beneath it, you sense another rhythm, a deeper pulse, ancient and eternal, the heartbeat of the world itself. You realize that you are not separate from the chaos, not an isolated fragment adrift in a hostile universe. You are woven into the fabric of existence, a single thread in the vast, ever-shifting tapestry of life. The ultimate truth begins to reveal itself, not as a blinding revelation, but as a quiet certainty, a knowing that settles into your bones. Chaos is not the opposite of order. It is the source of all creation. The universe is not a machine to be mastered, but a living mystery to be experienced. The meaning you seek is not hidden in some distant future, but present in every moment, waiting to be discovered in the dance of uncertainty. You remember the words of Heraclitus, "No man ever steps in the same river twice, for it's not the same river, and he's not the same man." You see now that life is not a problem to be solved, but a process to be lived, a constant flow of change, of becoming, of letting go, and beginning again. The river of chaos carries you forward, sometimes gently, sometimes with terrifying force, but always toward new possibilities, new ways of being. You realize that your suffering was never caused by chaos itself, but by your resistance to it, by the stories you told yourself about how things should be, by the walls you built to keep the unknown at bay. The more you tried to control life, the more you cut yourself off from its richness, its beauty, its wildness. The more you clung to certainty, the more you shrank from the fullness of your own experience. But now, standing in the open, you feel a new kind of freedom, a freedom that comes not from mastery, but from surrender, not from certainty, but from trust. You trust the process, trust yourself, trust the unfolding of life. You see that every moment of chaos was an invitation to grow, to adapt, to discover new strengths within yourself. Every loss, every failure, every heartbreak was a doorway to a deeper understanding, a more expansive love. You remember the teachings of Zen. Let go or be dragged. You see that letting go is not a passive act, but a courageous leap into the unknown, a willingness to be changed, to be undone, to be remade. You realize that the art of embracing chaos is the art of living with an open heart, of meeting each moment as it comes, without judgment or resistance. You look back on your journey, the fear, the struggle, the breakthrough, the rebellion, and you see that every step was necessary, every challenge a teacher, every wound a source of wisdom. You understand now that the ultimate truth is not something you can possess, but something you become. It is a way of being, a way of seeing, a way of loving the world in all its imperfection. You open your eyes and see the world anew. The city is still chaotic, still unpredictable, still full of noise and confusion. But you are no longer afraid. You see the beauty in the mess, the order in the disorder, the possibility in every moment of uncertainty. You realize that you are not here to conquer chaos, but to participate in it, to add your own voice to the symphony, your own brushstroke to the canvas, your own story to the unfolding narrative of existence. You feel a profound sense of connection to yourself, to others, to the world. You see that everyone is struggling with their own chaos, their own fears, their own longing for meaning. You feel compassion for their suffering, and for your own. You realize that the ultimate act of rebellion is not to escape chaos, but to embrace it together, to build communities of courage, of creativity, of love. You remember the words of Rainer Maria Rilke. Let everything happen to you, beauty and terror. Just keep going. No feeling is final. You see that the art of embracing chaos is the art of being fully human, of allowing yourself to feel, to grieve, to celebrate, to hope. It is the willingness to be broken and to heal, to lose and to find, to die and to be reborn. You sense that this is the secret at the heart of all wisdom traditions, the recognition that life is both fragile and resilient, both fleeting and eternal. You see that the only way to honor the gift of existence is to live it fully, to risk everything for the sake of love, of truth, of beauty. You realize that the ultimate truth is not a destination, but a journey, a never-ending process of becoming, of learning, of letting go. You feel the world calling to you, inviting you to step into the unknown, to trust the unfolding, to embrace the chaos. You know that there will be moments of fear, of doubt, of pain. But you also know that you are not alone, that you are part of something vast and mysterious and beautiful. You take a breath, and in that breath, you feel the presence of all those who have come before you. All the rebels, the seekers, the dreamers, who dared to embrace chaos, who dared to live with open hearts. You feel their courage flowing through you, their wisdom guiding you, their love sustaining you. You realize that the ultimate truth is not something you can explain or define. It is something you must live, moment by moment, breath by breath. It is the willingness to say yes to life, to trust the process, to embrace the mystery. You step forward into the unknown, into the chaos, into the fullness of your own becoming. The world is waiting, the journey continues, and you are ready. As the sun rises, casting its golden light over the city, you feel a sense of peace, of gratitude, of awe. You know that nothing will ever be the same, and you welcome the uncertainty, the possibility, the adventure of it all. You are the artist of your own life, the creator of your own meaning, the dancer in the storm. You are chaos and order, fear and courage, loss and love. You are alive. And as you walk into the day, you carry with you the ultimate truth, that to embrace chaos is to embrace life itself, to surrender to the mystery, to trust the unfolding, to become who you were always meant to be. The world is wild, unpredictable, beautiful, and so are you.